Hey, this is Cone from Sum 41, and you're listening to Epic Footnote.
Hey, what's going on? It's There Goes My Hero. I'm Matt.
And I'm Zach.
It's the first of our 2 interview shows that we do, and this time you clicked on the picture. This time we took a trip down the pop-punk road. We got a chance to interview Cone from Sum 41. Great interview, really nice guy. Kind of just holding up in Canada right now during the whole COVID situation, but got a chance to talk to him about a few of the artists that he's managed to meet over the years, and had some really good stories. Zach, why don't you tell me a little bit more about it?
You kind of forget how many bands that Sum 41 has not only toured with, but also collaborated in the studio or just on special projects. When I was going back and forth with Cone directly to set up the interview, hearing him say like, "Oh, I want to, I have a really cool story about the time Joe Strummer sent us a phone message." I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?" So that was just really cool to hear how someone as influential on an entire genre like Joe Strummer showed how much he really liked Sum 41 directly to them. So that was kind of a cool story. And then also just hearing about the time that he got to essentially party with Lars and Metallica, as well as perform in front of Metallica at the MTV Icon, and to show you just how diverse the band it is, and Cone and Sum 41 is, hearing how much it meant to meet DMC from Run DMC. That was really special. And then also topping it all off with some really great stories about recording with Iggy Pop and performing with Iggy Pop too. So literally just a whole wide spectrum of great stories. But you know what? You don't want to hear it from me. You want to hear it from Cone of Sum 41. Am I correct or am I wrong? Without further ado, give part 1 of our chat with Cone a listen. Let us know what you think also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Epic Footnote, and sit back and enjoy.
Get in too deep.
I want to start off with There Goes My Hero, where we talk to artists about the time they got to meet their idols, just share all the embarrassing stuff. And I know we have a lot of cool things to talk about. First, just, how have you been holding up with everything going on? What have you been up to?
Yeah, the last time we played would have been February, so we've been off since then. And we were supposed to have the whole year was booked for us until the fall for touring. We were supposed to be in Europe and all that stuff. I have 2 children, so I'm just being a dad. And, I've been away so much in my life through my kids' lives, and they're only young. 5 and 2. So I'm just trying to be the best dad I can right now, just because I'm home and trying as much as I can for them. So that's basically what I'm concentrating on. And, I do miss touring, and I miss going on the road, and, I still play music all the time at home. I'm in my studio right now, and I just kind of play around, but really I'm just trying to be a good dad right now and teach them, young kids, what's going on in the world right now. This is not normal. This doesn't happen all the time. And I don't think kids really realize that this is just like the norm. I just wear a mask every day, and, I'm being told to stay away from my friends, and that's not normal. When we all grew up being young kids, we could do whatever the fuck we wanted. We just kind of don't wrestle with your friends, and don't get too close. No hugs. It's like that. It's not normal shit for kids. So, I'm trying to teach my young kids that, this is how it is right now. We have to be safe and social distance and wear masks. But, when things are better, you're going to be able to hug your friend. You're going to be able to play wrestle, and you're going to be able to do all these things that you don't even know you can really do in the real world. That's all I'm really doing.
On one hand, the one good thing to come out of this is that you get to spend quality time with family.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's, I guess, the other side of it is I'm happy I get to be with my family a little bit more than I have in the past. Going back to it, I do feel bad for the young kids that have to deal with not being able to do normal kid stuff.
Well, something that's not normal is getting to meet icons, or even just to be in their presence. And when we were going back and forth, you dropped something that still just is burning in my head, that you had received a phone message from none other than Joe Strummer. Now, you got to tell me more about this.
Yeah. So it wasn't me personally, but so this would have been, I guess, 2001, and we were about to go to the UK. And this might have been the first time or maybe second time we were about to go there. And I remember being at a dinner with our label. Our old A&R guy, Louis Largent, he was on Headbangers Ball, which was like an old MTV.
Yeah.
You guys remember?
Yeah.
He was a host on that.
Oh, wow.
He got to meet a lot of people and got to know a lot of people. And then he quit all that, and then he went to Island Records, and he ended up being one of the A&R guys that signed us. So I think along the way somewhere, we were going to the UK for the first time, and people were trying to get us press, and Fat Lip and In Too Deep had come out. I remember being at dinner in Toronto, and we were talking about going to the UK, and he said, I think they were trying to get us on he was doing a radio show at the time or something like that, and he said, I got a message back from Joe Strummer, and he played it for me in my ear, and it said something along the lines, and this was, obviously it's almost 20 years ago now, but I remember it being something like, I would love to have, in an English accent, which I'm not going to do. I would love to have Sum 41 on my show. I know their riffs better than they do, so let's do it.
Whoa!
Like, what the fuck? Like, this is like, to me, like legendary punk rocker. And I was like, I can't even believe that he would listen to our band or know our band or anything to do with our band. And for him to say that he knew our riffs or all that, anything to do with our band, I mean, I was blown away. And the unfortunate thing is he passed away before we got there.
Oh, wow. So it came that close. It's just that he...
We're close, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this would have probably been like, he died in December, and I think this would have probably been the summer or the fall when we heard the message.
Oh, wow. I mean, even just timing-wise, because as you mentioned, this is 2001. You're in the midst of promoting all killer, no filler. I mean, this is at the early ages of the height of Sum 41. That must have been just like a cherry on the top to hear this message from Joe Strummer.
It's crazy. And, in those kind of days when you're a new band and you're young, and we were 21 years old, and we kind of just entered this scene and just being green about everything, you always, in the back of your mind, you think everyone kind of is out to get you. You know what I mean? Like, because you're like...
Yeah, I can understand that.
You're the hot new band, and you're on MTV, and you're on the radio, and you're pigeonholed into this, like, pop punk thing or punk, and everyone's putting you in all these different holes. And to have Joe Strummer say that he knew our band and liked the band and wants to have us on the show, that's really gratifying to a young 21-year-old band.
To any age would be gratifying, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And him of all people, I gotta believe that he wouldn't just bullshit you. Like, if he didn't like you, he would have let you know in a recording.
Sure. I don't think he's a bullshitter. I don't think he knows that. He's like, he comes from that era of punk rock where none of them were bullshitters. I mean, you look at Johnny Rotten, you look at the Ramones, none of them are just saying shit to be nice. They mean what they say. So yeah, it was cool. That's one thing I'll always remember. I'm a huge Clash fan, and it's, basically one of my favorite bands of all time. So I always think about that story.
What could have been the chance of you guys getting to talk to Joe Strummer actually on the air would have been really cool.
Yeah.
So we have another show that we do where we each have to pick a top 3 of a particular list. So you just mentioned the Clash is one of your favorite bands of all time. What would you say is your top 3 Clash songs?
Oh shit. Well, Clampdown's definitely up there. I'm So Bored with the USA is definitely up there. And, there's so many. White Riot. London Calling's a classic. Lost in the Supermarket. Guns of Brixton. So it's hard for me to actually, like, I just, they've just, since I discovered them when I was in my early 20s, and I guess I was late to kind of discover them and being in my early 20s, but I really got into them in my early 20s. You go through every record, and every record's got 10 insane songs, and I could never really pick my top 3 because every record, even like Sandinista, has, it's the lost album no one really remembers, listens to, but it's got so many good songs on it. So it's tough. It's a tough question.
Is there any one song in particular that, changed you?
I think I go through moods because the Clash, with the first record, like their self-titled record was so kind of raw and dirty and punky.
Right.
I feel that kind of when I listen to that, I'm like, I get all energized and like, oh yeah, let's like fucking smash something. But you know, Sandinista, I'm like, you know, it's kind of a little bit more. He's got some like reggae stuff on it and some different kind of vibes, and then you even listen to Combat Rock. By the end, it's totally different, more like mainstreamy kind of, dare I say, pop. So it's just it's a mood thing for me. Like they covered it all. Like they're one of those bands that did everything. You know, they could go reggae to punk to, you know, I don't know. They're crazy to me how they just went through all these genres and were able to pull it off really, really well.
Now, I know, I mean, obviously, you know, just hearing the influence that the Clash has had on you, it's inevitable. But I also know at first you wouldn't expect Metallica to be such a huge influence on a band like Sum 41. But then especially, I mean, when we were, you know, Order in the Decline, like, which was one of our favorite albums of 2019, you can definitely hear a little bit of the influence. And I know that your paths have crossed with Metallica a few times. Do you recall the first time you actually met Metallica?
I mean, And Justice for All was the first metal album I ever heard in my life when I was 11. I think this was the first time we ever met them. It was 2004. We were asked to play on their MTV Icon.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think tonight if we had met them previous to that, but I actually don't think we had. I remember playing around 2004, 2005 in Europe on festivals with them, and we had met them then as well. I was just trying to figure out the timelines, but I think this Icon thing was the first time we actually met them. So we did play on that MTV thing. It was fun, and so what happened after was we ended up at a hotel because we had heard there was going to be an after party, and we were in Los Angeles, and so we were like, oh, there's this hotel. It's, you know, the lobby bar, and this is where everyone's going. We're like, well, we're fucking going. And Lars, of course, shows up, and you know, and James was newly sober at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah.
And we kind of like shook hands and said hi. And he didn't end up going to the bar, but Lars was definitely there. And I remember as the night wound down, there was like murmurs of possibly a after party. He was staying at the hotel, and you know, we were 24 at the time, and this is like the height of when we were like fully partying. Like we just wanted to do everything. We wanted to meet everyone. We wanted to drink everything, and so we had heard, you know, there's maybe a little party going to happen at Lars's room. Don't tell a lot of people though, you know, just like, oh, I'm in. Cool. I'm in. And so we ended up going back to his room, and it was like, I remember it being me, Derek, Steve, our friend Matt, who was playing drums with Avril at the time, and a couple of Lars's friends. And like, that was it. It was a very close knit group. And I remember, you know, I won't tell the whole story because I don't want to throw Lars under the bus. But,
it's one of those kind of stories. Okay.
You know, as you can imagine, things got out of hand. You know, there was a lot of alcohol and drugs involved, and yeah, it was a fun night. And I remember the one funny thing about Lars. I remember like being so wasted and high, and you'd come around and he would talk to you, and he'd kind of like punch you in the kidneys. Punch you. Like, how you guys doing? You'd be like, fuck off. And that's and I think he was as wasted as we were, so I think that was his vibe. And then eventually he disappeared to his room, and we all kind of looked around and was like, maybe we should leave now. But we left. It was probably like 7 a.m.
I would have loved if you were like, no, I'm going to sleep on the couch. And, you know, well, I was going to say, I also remember watching that performance too. And you guys did like a medley that introduced Metallica into the arena where they were hosting that. And I got to imagine that must have been so nerve wracking to just not only be like the first performance of the night and sitting in the bar, but also just like to have Metallica like watch you perform. Like, what was going through your mind leading up to that?
I was scared. You know, I remember being nervous because I remember thinking, you know, these are going to be metal fans. And, you know, Metallica obviously being the biggest metal band in the world. I was like, man, we have to pull this off. And we opened the show. I'm not really sure how that happened. Like, I mean, they just kind of, we said, okay, well, I guess we'll try. And personally, I didn't even know they were going to be walking to the crowd when we were playing. That was kind of an after thing I saw. And I was like, holy shit, there they are. And then I remember thinking, like, I knew, you know, Dave being a metal guy and we were doing Master Puppets, we were doing the solo. I knew he was going to kill it. That was kind of like my thing. I was like, well, if we all fuck up, once we get to Master Puppets, Dave will save us. You know, luckily, I think we did it all pretty good. And then Dave fucking killed the solo and it all was good, I think, as far as I could tell.
Well, I was a big fan of it. I remember being really impressed, like, because I knew you guys as, like, I knew you had like some metal influences by that time that happened, but you guys held your own, I recall.
I also think that Snoop Dogg's performance was probably one of the better ones too.
Surprisingly,
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I think nothing against Avril, but when, you know, that performance happened too, pretty much everyone looked pretty decent compared to that.
Yeah. I remember thinking, like, I was watching the Snoop Dogg thing. I'm like, of course you're doing this. Seems to be everywhere, you know. He's like, he's in this, he's in that, he's everywhere. I'm like, this guy's so cool. He's like everywhere. Now he's at the Metallica thing.
It's funny because in addition to like the MTV Icon performance for Metallica, that wasn't actually the first time you performed on that show. I remember for Aerosmith, when they did the MTV Icon thing, you redid the famous Aerosmith and Run DMC video where you guys played the band. And why am I blanking on who the rappers were?
I was
involved in that.
It was Nelly and Ja Rule.
That's right. I still remember thinking, man, that is really, really random, but cool, but random.
It was
That's the most early 2000s thing ever.
I agree. It was like, if you look at it now, you're just like, what the fuck was going on back then? And it was pretty funny. Like, this was like when Fat Lip was just out. That was it, I think. So I don't think many people knew who we were, and I don't know if they knew who we were. And I remember flying into that video. We had to fly in. I think we were in Toronto. We flew all the way to LA to do it, and we were so tired, and we didn't know. All we knew is we were kind of in this video with two hip hop stars at the time, and it was strange. That video shoot was strange, and and you know, we had to go in and record it. We actually recorded the song over, like we were playing it, and I don't really know much more to tell about that video because I don't remember much because we were so so weird. It was so weird that shoot.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to you actually sharing the stage with DMC himself, which is kind of a full circle moment right there.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you met DMC? Was it at the Alt Press Awards where you guys performed, or was it way before that?
I feel like we had met him. We did this thing in 2001 again, MTV's 20th anniversary, and we played with Rob Halford and Tommy Lee.
Oh, I remember that was a badass performance. I remember that a lot.
I think he was there. I feel like we crossed paths, but yeah, I mean, the first time we actually like hung out and chatted was when we played with him at the APMAs. DMC is like one of the cooler guys I've met in the music business. He is so humble, so down to earth. I mean, I remember listening to Run DMC when I was like 9. Hip hop was the first thing I really got into before rock music. Way before I listened to Metallica and all that stuff, I was into hip hop and that old hip hop stuff. Meeting him, I was like, it just brought back all these memories of listening to, you know, popping a cassette tape. And, you know, I used to, before I was in a band, I used to be in a rap group. Like me and my friends had a rap group together. You know, I was 9 years old. You know, and I grew up in a suburb of Toronto, which was super safe, but we'd rap about being like in gangs and stuff like that. So, you know, meeting him and you know, playing with him, it was insane to me. He's one of the cooler people. I'd say like up there with Iggy Pop. Him and Iggy Pop are like two guys that I can actually say like are the most humble, talented people I've met that are just like the coolest guys. Just, they don't like have an ego, and they just want to like hang out and listen to what you have to say. Like, they don't want to talk about them necessarily. They just want to like hang out with you and just ask you about how it's going with you. Yeah, it was great.
I could have sworn that you guys were going to be recording something with DMC.
Yeah.
Did it ever come out?
No, nothing really came to fruition with that. I don't know what happened. Derek and him were working on something, and then I don't know. I remember recording like a little bass part for a little song that Derek had, and then Derek and him were getting together to do some vocals, and Dave was getting involved as well, and then that's the last I heard. So I actually don't even know. I should ask about that. But yeah, we were supposed to do something.
Oh man, well, fingers crossed that can come about maybe in the future. One last thing, Tim, you mentioned Iggy Pop, and not only did you guys get to hang out with him, but you got to actually write music with him for an Iggy Pop album. What went into that? What do you remember most from those sessions?
I remember the first time that we got a call. Like, I remember our manager saying, Iggy wants to do a song with you guys. Wow, that's strange. Like, this was like just randomly one day, just a full-on call of, hey, Iggy Pop wants to do a song with you guys. We're just like, Iggy, like the real Iggy Pop? And so I remember him and Derek getting on the phone eventually and talking about what the song was going to sound like, Iggy's vision of what he wanted from, where his album was headed and why he chose us and all this stuff. And then Derek instantly wrote that riff, and sent it over, and Iggy loved it. And then I just remember being in LA, and we were in the studio, and Iggy walks in, the first time we ever met him, and he just says, "Hey dudes," and sits down on the floor, and we're like, "Oh, you want a seat, or you want, we're on the couch?" And, "Oh, hey, you have my seat." And he's like, "Oh, sit on the floor." So we all start chatting, and then we just record for 2 days, and he was so humble, and basically he, like I said, he just wanted to know what we wanted to do and like how we did things, and he wasn't necessarily interested to do like the Stooges sound again or the Iggy sound. He was like, well, let's make this a collaboration, and how do you guys do things? How do you guys want it to sound? And he does his vocals and all that stuff and lyrics and all that kind of stuff, but he didn't want to go throw back to the Stooges or anything like that. He wanted to really be like Sum 41 with Iggy. And I thought that was cool, and then for about a year and a half later, we ended up being his backup band at various award shows. Like, we played the MTV Latin Awards with him. We did
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah. And we did like this award show in Toronto. He got inducted into some kind of like Hall of Fame in Miami, and we flew down and played with him there. And we were on Letterman with him. And so things started popping up, and we just ended up, playing with him all over the place. Yeah, he's the coolest. I mean, he's probably the coolest I've met in the music business as like an artist. Just a cool dude that's done it all.
And it goes back to with the same thing with Joe Strummer, the gratification of knowing that, like, because he could pick any musician he wants to play with him, and they would drop everything to be there, but he wanted you guys. Totally. And that's so cool.